A few days passed after that. While today seemed like it'd be hot again, it was still a nice day.
こんなことしてると今が冬じゃなくてよかったなとは思うよね。
While nervously getting dressed on the rooftop, Makoto flashed me an easygoing smile.
レイ君に見られてると必要以上に体が熱くなっちゃうけど。
Yeah, sure. I'd just be digging my own grave if I said what I was actually thinking out loud, so I gave her a mechanical response. Once again, I was just keeping my eye on Makoto out of concern for her today, but I couldn't just pass up the chance to see her in her birthday suit. I'd retooled my usual routine so I could accommodate going to school early each morning in order for her to get her uniform.
ねえ、レイ君はなんでこんなに私に付き合ってくれるの？
Makoto asked a rather sudden question. Well, I'm kind of worried about you.
着替えが見たいからでしょう。
I certainly won't deny that, but I kinda have a feeling you want me to watch as well.
それも否定はしないかも。
Even while Makoto repeated my words back at me jokingly, she was still visibly blushing. It didn't have the same level of destructive power as the first time I saw, but all the same, watching her was pretty hot. Though I'd been keeping an eye on her, Makoto had been pretty level-headed these past few days. Or rather, she'd been spending her time after school stashing extra clothes in various places around town so she could make use of her teleportation powers more often. For example, she'd stashed them in one of the coin lockers at the monorail station, in the park's public restroom, and in the storage rooms of households that had connections to the Jonochi family. I was just following her around, but it still felt kind of fun, almost like I was a spy playing cat and mouse. But since I recalled Makoto having said she wanted to use that watch to help people... Makoto, have you seen the news lately?
どれのこと？
Makoto asked me nonchalantly. She'd finished getting dressed by now. From what I've heard, an anonymous donor has made large contributions to charities and volunteer organizations here in town.
褒めて褒めて。
So it really was you. My presumption turned out to be correct, but I still felt kinda disappointed. It's a nice story and all, but where'd you get that kind of money from anyway?
悪い人たちのお財布。ああ、仁義のない悪い人たちだね。
So are you some modern-day Robin Hood now, or what? Makoto repeated herself in order to emphasize that point.
お年寄り狙いのオレオレ詐欺集団とか、この町だと規模は小さいけど麻薬関係とか他人を傷つけることをしてる人たちから。
Where'd you hear about those con men? Wait, on second thought, I'd rather not know. Bad dudes would almost be a compliment to Makoto's own family line compared to the really bad dudes she was talking about. This was, after all, a matter of dirty money changing hands. A chivalrous thief stealing money from the dregs of society and giving it back to the common folk, like Robin Hood, Ishikawa Goemon, or maybe Lupin for a more modern day example. They made for a lineup of characters that I figured Makoto would probably be into. Even if you were taking out the trash, so to speak, I kinda feel like you're overdoing it.
レイ君は反対なの？いいことしてるって思ってくれないの？
That's not it. I just don't want you to do anything reckless.
うん、そういうことか。でも全然危なくないよ。
Well, you were using your powers of transformation and teleportation to sneak into those guys' hideouts, weren't you?
うん。
In that case, do you use teleportation to make your escape too, or are you optimistic enough to think you can just say the Jonochi family name and get off scot-free?
やだな、そんなことしないよ。バレたらバレたで、全部私一人で制圧するから。
You're seriously freaking me out. She was giving off an aura totally different from any ordinary girl, which was practically making my hair stand on end. But anyway, all joking aside, I still say it's reckless.
そんなに心配なら試してみる？
Test you? Makoto spread her arms out freely.
本気で襲いかかってみてもいいよ。
Huh? If you wanna have a go, then you're fine with wherever I end up touching you?
なんかものすごく曲解された気がするけど、どこを狙ってもいいよ。
Makoto just stood there with exasperation, not letting her guard up. She was a sitting duck, though I wasn't a pro at martial arts or anything, so I probably couldn't make that judgment, but seeing things as an amateur, she certainly did seem unprepared. I knew Makoto was strong, and that she could throw a punch which somehow stopped right in front of your face before it hit, but I doubted she could actually win against a serious male opponent. But I suppose I could just give her a little fright this time. Just grabbing her by the arm should suffice. As those thoughts went through my head, I lunged forward without warning to grab Makoto by the arm. Then... somehow I found myself looking at the blue sky. Huh? It seemed that, as I took my first step forward, something had swept my leg out from under me, and my foot never touched the ground to finish that step. Then the world went topsy-turvy, but luckily, something had supported my back and let me down gently. Huh? I hastily picked myself up and looked around. Evidently, I had been lying on the ground.
Ne?
Makoto smiled cheerfully. What happened to me?
足を払っただけなんだけど、そのまま倒れたら危ないから背中も支えてあげたよ。
She said it like it was perfectly normal, but I still had no idea how she'd beaten me. Do you practice Aikido or something?
格闘技は何もやってないよ。剣道やりたかったけど、お父さんに止められたし。
That makes sense. If you're that much of a threat with just your bare hands, you'd probably end up killing someone with a bamboo sword.
あのね、だから私は暴力は。
While Makoto was talking, I lunged for her waist, intending to surprise tackle her. It's not like she said the first one to hit the floor was the loser, and since we'd already grappled a bit, I didn't hold back this time.
ずるい。
Makoto yelled out, but of course, this time she... thought.
びっくりした。
Nice weather we are having. Alright, I fold. I seriously didn't stand a chance against her. I told her as much as I got up again. How the heck are you that strong anyway?
昔から運動神経だけはいいんだよね。うちで一番強いの私だし。
Impressive. The strongest one in your family. If Michiru is a genius in every department, then Makoto is a beast whose fundamental ability is brute forcing her way out of every situation? How did I get to be surrounded by nothing but people like that anyway?
まあこんな感じだから心配しなくても平気だよ。
Despite the smile on Makoto's face, the thought of her putting herself in danger was making me frown. I'm still worried.
まだ何かあるの？
You're a girl, aren't you? What does that have to do with anything?
Huh?
Makoto's expression went blank as she froze in place. Then... You're fine with me seeing you naked, but you're getting embarrassed about that? I sighed. Hey, wait a minute. I totally forgot about that. The realization hit me that I was the one who was misunderstanding things, not Makoto. Makoto was good enough at acting that it had totally slipped my mind, but I remembered she told me she didn't really understand what being an ordinary girl was like. Meaning, while she was certainly aware of being female, she didn't really give a feminine sort of impression and didn't pay any heed to the distinguishing characteristics of the sexes. That's why she didn't mind leaving her clothes and underwear for me to pick up, and why she didn't mind if I saw her naked. So when someone actually started to treat her like a girl, that was when she'd get embarrassed. Hey, are you a prepubescent girl or something? I blurted out a bad joke almost reflexively.
女の子ってそんな変なこと言わないでよ。
Just as I thought, Makoto got flustered at being treated like a typical girl. So that was it. When it came to love and romance, I never expected Makoto to actually be this green about it. I couldn't help but sigh, If I didn't tell her directly, she'd never understand. You know, no matter how strong you are, you will end up getting hurt if you make one little screw up. What if you end up with a scar?
傷とかかっこいいじゃん。頬に十字傷とかさ。
They aren't cool in the slightest to me. I'm not in grade school anymore.
だから。
Makoto, I'm trying to say that I do not want to see a scar of any kind on that cute face of yours. I refused to mince words with her as I said that. Makoto's jaw incoherently flapped open and closed like a goldfish. For a second there, she kinda reminded me of Miu. Anyway, even if I'm being a pain in the ass about it, please don't do anything reckless, alright? I bonked Makoto on the head. She was showing a rather strange new sort of personality. Come on, we'd better get to the classroom. Homeroom's gonna start soon. I? Huh? Just as my mind was trying to process what she said, she fumbled with her pocket watch and vanished. Hey! She was so quick that I couldn't even get my retort out before she was completely gone. Lying on the ground in a heap, where Makoto had been standing, was the school uniform she'd only just changed into. There's no way she could actually be that naive. If she was back at home now, I guess that meant she was intending to play hooky today. Jeez. All I could do was sigh yet again and wonder when on earth I'd finally get a chance to confess to her. Ultimately, Makoto ended up not being in class all day. There wasn't anything I could do, since I actually was in class like a responsible student, so nothing much happened for the rest of the school day. After all, it wasn't like I could make her show up. Since I hadn't had the opportunity in a while, I decided to invite some of my male friends to hang out after school like I'd usually done. But he has other male friends besides Shuji? We ended up walking around the shopping district for a while and then went for karaoke. By the time we left, it was twilight. Seeing my friends off, I then took the monorail home. As usual, my parents weren't home for dinner, but at least Michiru and Didi were there to keep things from getting boring. Then I returned to my room. I haven't had a normal day like that in a long time, except for the morning, of course. I reached out with my foot and hit the switch on the electric fan while lying in bed, rubbing my now sated stomach.
戻ったか。
Returned I have. I was only over in the main building having dinner though. I greeted Crow as she floated into my room. Not really having much else to say to her, I rolled over in my bed and went back to reading my phone. As for Crow, she was watching the TV set I'd left on with extreme attentiveness. Even when she's around, I don't exactly talk to her all the time. Things were usually more like this. An hour went by and nothing important happened. What is it?
またあのオーラか。微弱だが、何度も鬱陶しいな。
Is Makoto using the clock again? Oh, Makoto's... Just then the phone on my pillow lit up, informing me I'd received a new message.
中央公園。
Once again, it was a message which consisted only of a location name. But it can't possibly be a prank this time. I remembered Makoto's little jest quite well, so I definitely wasn't going to fall for that a second time. Therefore, she must have had some other reason to call on me. Crow, would you be up for a nice little stroll in the cool evening breeze?
こんな時間に出歩くのか？
It's Makoto. I think something's happened to her.
我が輩には関係なかろう。
I don't mean it like that. I want you to come along so you can see her and that watch of hers firsthand.
仕方ないの。
Even as she griped about it, I dragged Crow out of the house with me. I walked through the night which still bore much of the day's sweltering heat. Owing to the humidity, I felt like I was slogging through a tepid pool of water.
見事な月だ。
I heard her voice from overhead. Crow was floating through the sky above, gazing up at the fully waxen moon. Aside from occasional interruptions from the sound of the monorail running its usual course along the elevated tracks in the distance, it was a quiet night. Man, it's almost too quiet. I somehow had a feeling that maybe nothing important happened today because the real floor show was reserved for tonight. Central Park, a location all but deserted at night. Even with the street lamps lit up, the park was big enough that they wouldn't overpower the darkness, so very few people were likely to pass through at this hour. But all the same, tonight's moon bathed the park in its dim white illumination. And under that full moon which seemed ready to fall from the sky, there I saw it. A fox mask. It wasn't the kind of cheap mask they sell at festivals either. Its carved wood was unmistakably authentic. Standing there wearing that mask was a girl. Bizarre was the first word to come to mind. Once she noticed my presence, the girl with the fox mask returned my gaze and brushed her hair back over her shoulder. From the outline of her body, along with her hair, I immediately realized who it was. Makoto.
レイ君、こんばんは。
Makoto lifted up her mask and smiled cheerfully.
ちょっと遅かったね。せっかくのクライマックスを見逃しちゃったよ。
She wore quite a casual smile on her face, almost as if she were talking about a movie she'd just seen. At her feet, several young men were sprawled on the ground. 4 to be exact. While none of them seemed to have any flesh wounds, they were all out like a light. What's going on here?
悪者退治？
She gave me a blank stare. Makoto probably wasn't wearing that fox mask to scare me. It seemed she was wearing it for one reason only, to hide her real identity from the aforesaid bad dudes. Taking out some bad dudes, she says. Damn it, I told you this morning not to do anything reckless. I naturally had to scold her about it, but Makoto gave me an equally stern expression in return.
あのね、私だってレイ君に注意されたし、こんなことしたくなかったよ。ただ、この人たちが公園を通りがかった人を襲ってるって話を聞いちゃったから、仕方ないじゃん。
Attacking people?
最初はただのカツアゲだったけど、最近は調子に乗って、それ以上も計画してたみたい。ほら、その、女の人をゴニョゴニョってね。
Right.
いわゆる誰にもコントロールされていない悪ってことだね。
Did you hear about these guys at home by any chance?
むやみに素人さんに迷惑かけられると困るからね。もともとそういう人たちから仇の人たちを守るのもうちのお仕事なんだよ。
Then perhaps you could have just gone to the police.
そうだけど、私は事件が起きる前に止めたかったから。今回は正当防衛ってことで。ごめんね。
With that kind of apology, I couldn't keep criticizing her without seeming like an unreasonable jerk. What's done is done. Besides, it was difficult not to sympathize with her motives when thinking about what kind of people she'd been dealing with. By the way, why'd you call me out here? You need me on cleanup duty or something?
いや、当て身で気絶させてるだけだし、リーダーさんには脅しをかけたから、起きたら自分たちで帰ると思うよ。呼んだのは、朝、私のことを気にしてたから、大丈夫だよっていう追加のデモンストレーション。
Okay, sure. Any lone girl who could completely overpower 4 dudes like that was definitely not one to be trifled with. That said, though, I never heard anything about you showing that much strength during PE classes.
手加減しないと記録出ちゃうから。
What, you'd be setting a record at the prefectural tourney or something?
世界記録。
Holy shit, she's freaking me out.
ね、この通りだから心配しないで。むしろ褒めて褒めて。
You want a pat on the head or something?
それでもいいよ。
Even though I was joking, when she actually did hold out her head, I couldn't just not pat it. Makoto gave an amused laugh, as if she were a cat.
じゃあ、もう安心してもらえたかな。
I'm still gonna worry about you no matter what.
仕方ないか。
Backing away from me with a skip, she turned around and nodded in understanding.
それじゃあ、この人たちが起きちゃう前に帰ろうか。
Good call. It'd be the worst if they came to at a bad time and wound up thinking I was the one who whooped their asses.
こら、我が輩を無視するな。
Oh. Soon after hearing her voice, Crow floated down from above my head. I guess she'd been watching everything that went down from an aerial view. Which reminds me, I recall her coming along with me, but seeing the aftermath of that whole floor show made me totally forget she was there. I thought she'd be angry at me for ignoring her, but her expression was surprisingly serious.
とっととそちらの遊びを打ち切れ。その女子がいると、我が輩と話せないのだろ。
Are you just walking home, Makoto?
今回はレイ君と一緒に帰ろうかなって。夜の散歩にもなるし。
Oh, I see. It was a very tempting offer. Sorry, I need to buy something while I'm out, so I'm going the other way.
コンビニとかならついていくけど。
No, I have to go up to the shopping district.
そっちか。じゃあ、私はまっすぐ帰ろうかな。ところで、女の子を夜道で一人歩きさせるなんて。
Now that I've seen how much damage you can really do, I gotta say, I pity any sap who would have the nuts to try to mug you.
くすん。
Those are some pretty impressive crocodile tears.
レイ君もあんまり遅くなっちゃダメだからね。
Waving goodbye to me, she turned and started on her walk home. Now then, I had to find somewhere more secluded to talk to Crow.